Hey folks, I got a really cool banjo to show you today. This is the Gold Tone Bela Fleck signature model, the My Bluegrass Heart banjo that they've been making. I first heard about this banjo probably a little bit over a year ago. My good buddy Mark Horowitz, or was it a year ago? It could have been 2 years ago at this point. Time, who knows anymore. Anyway, Mark called me and he said, "Oh boy, you're going to like what Gold Tone's working on next." "Oh yeah." And I said, "Well, we'll see about that. What are they working on next?" And he said, "They're working on a Gold Tone signature model for Bela Fleck." And I said, "Well, that's pretty cool." So, I like that. Anyway, he also mentioned that the pod assembly of this banjo was going to be the same or very similar to that of the OB3 Twanger. If you've seen my review of the OB3 Twanger, you know that I think that's a very impressive banjo for the money. And I was really thrilled to hear this because I think that pod assembly would work really well for this, and it did. So what is that pod assembly? What's different about that from other Gold Tones? Well, first of all, the wood rim in that pod assembly is a little bit thicker. It's called a fat rim. So it's not that much thicker. It's just a little bit thicker. And then the tone ring is a no-hole tone ring. So it doesn't have the 20 holes that you'll see on most standard flathead tone rings. And so that's kind of a tribute to J.D. Crow's banjo that was called the Banger, which was an old Gibson from the 30s that had a fat rim and a no-hole flathead tone ring. Fantastic sounding banjo. But these banjos with the no-hole tone ring and the fat rim tend to have a little bit of a harder, more direct and punchy sound. So I thought that that would kind of be really perfect, for this more modern setup to help, counterbalance the warmth and the clarity. And I think it worked out really well. So the main differences between the OB3 Twanger and this Bela Fleck signature model is basically just that one of them is more of a traditional bluegrass banjo setup, and the other is a more modern, Bela Fleck style. I don't know why I'm putting Bela Fleck in quotes, but I guess Bela Fleck style setup, if I'm not talking about him as a person, but as a setup on the banjo. But anyway, so let me walk you through what that is, and I'll tell you my thoughts of this banjo, and heck, maybe I'll even play it for you a little bit, who knows. All right, so first thing is that, as I said, the pod assembly is basically the same thing as the OB3 Twanger. The most obvious difference is that it has this matte finish. It's a smooth finish, which I like a lot. The finish on the Twanger is really shiny and thick, which looks nice, but this, I think, to me, I like the look of this a little bit better. It's not quite as shiny. You're not going to blind yourself on it. The other thing about the Bela Fleck banjo is that the bridge is significantly taller, whereas the Twanger is going to come set up with a 5/8 bridge, or I guess mine is an 11/16, but a standard bluegrass height of 5/8 to 11/16. Bela's setup, he uses a 7/8 tall bridge, and it's quite a bit thicker, so it's 7/8 inch tall, and I'd have to look at the bottom of the foot on this bridge, but I believe it's a little over 3 grams, which is fairly heavy. But on a banjo like this, it works. The banjo also comes with this beautiful wooden armrest. This one's stained red, clearly. I don't know if you can get the red one standard, or if they do it anymore. This was just what came on it, and it's very comfortable. A lot of wooden armrests are a little too thick. This one is just perfect. It's slim, it's not too big, really comfortable. This particular banjo came with a Pruka Presto tailpiece. I removed the cover because I just like that. And it's set fairly high because you've got the taller bridge. So I believe that you have the option for what Gold Tone calls a cast tailpiece for this banjo. Mark Horowitz has told me that it's a very good tailpiece, but I haven't tried it. I'm sure it's great. I think Bela likes it as well. Another thing about this setup is that your head is going to be a bit looser than you'd have on, a bluegrass banjo. So this head is at about an F sharp, when normally people usually like, people say the standard is like G sharp, but, people like all sorts of head tensions from G to B, although B is kind of pushing it. Anyway, so with all these, setup features, the banjo has a warmer, more cavernous, but not like a bad cavernous thing, a reverby sound. Now, the most important thing, and the biggest difference about these two banjos, and by that I mean the OB3 twanger and this Bela Fleck banjo, is the neck. So the first thing you're going to notice, aside from the fact that there's a huge red heart there, and then there's another tiny red heart here, and a little bonus heart there, and I'll tell you, if you can find any more hearts on this thing, you give me a call. Actually, don't call me, I won't pick up, but you can text me. Anyway, so the first thing you're going to notice is that this neck is both wider and a good bit thicker than a standard banjo neck. And it's also got a radiused fingerboard, and it's got these thick, tall frets. Now, I say it's thicker, quite a bit thicker. It is thick, but, it's not so thick that it's going to be hard to play. I find this neck super comfortable and easy to play. The extra space here lets you, for doing like wider spread chord shapes and stuff, it's really a joy to play. And, I've played Bela's banjo a couple of times, which is an amazing banjo. And this neck, it's not exactly the same as his neck. I think his neck is just a little bit thicker and wider than this one, but this neck is pretty close, and it's also just truly, and I'm not just saying this, it's truly one of the most comfortable necks I've ever played on any banjo. So another feature of this neck that Bela really likes, that I believe he has on his Gibson right now, is this 0 fret. So Gold Tone calls this the 0 glide nut. And so what that does is the strings go into the nut slot to keep them in place, and then they rest on this fret. So what does that do? What that does, or in theory, I guess, I guess it seems to do it, at least from what I can find, is that it just evens out everything so that the fretted notes and the open notes sound more similar. So everything's just a little more even. Another great feature about this is that it comes with the Rickard 10-to-1 tuning pegs, which are really great. I mean, there are only two tuning pegs that I would really want on my banjo if I were playing a gig, and that's either these Rickard tuning pegs or the Bill Keith tuners, either the D tuners or the standard tuners. So another thing you might have noticed is, why are these buttons red? Well, it's because they're made out of brass. Why are these tuner buttons made out of brass? You might be thinking to yourself, are they crazy? No, they're not crazy. It's actually a very good idea for what Bela was wanting. Because Bela, on his main banjo, he has 4 Bill Keith D tuners. If you've never heard of Bill Keith, look him up. He's one of the most epic banjo players of all time. Great guy. He was a great guy, too. But he invented these things called D tuners. And they let you stop the string so that you can tune it up and down, and it gets locked in place. So you can tune down from a B to an A and up back to a B without going out of tune. But the thing Bela likes about these tuners is they're heavier, and those make the tone a little bit bigger. So to make these Rickard tuners weigh the same, they had these brass buttons made, which is a really great idea, at least in my opinion and their opinion, and I think it is a good idea. Anyway, you also have this planetary style 5th string peg, which Bela likes a lot. It can be a little tricky to restring this at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty easy. I mean, when I first got the thing, I was like, oh boy, when I have to change the strings, I'm just going to have to get them to send me a new neck to put on the thing. But no, once you get used to it, it's easy peasy. So my thoughts on this banjo, you've been listening to me yak on for 10 minutes without playing much, but I'll play for you in a minute, I guarantee you. But I think this is a very, very good banjo. I think that to get anything like this would cost a little bit more. That's been one of the points for a lot of people have been, why is this Gold Tone so expensive? Well, first of all, it's by far the best thing Gold Tone has put out there. I think they'd agree with that. And also, to get a banjo like this custom made by a luthier here in America would cost a lot more. And also, it's just a fantastic banjo. It sounds great, it plays great, and it responds great. I did make just a few changes, and that was when I got the banjo, the head that was on it, it was a Remo top frosted head, but it was a thinner one. So I got a Stumac Remo, which is just a slightly thicker frosting, and I really like that. I don't want the frosting too thick, but this head seems to do it right, as far as I'm concerned. And then I put a competitor's bridge on it. This is a Silvio Ferretti Scorpion bridge. I was not, to be honest, I was not too thrilled with the bridge that came on it. It wasn't a bad bridge, but, I've been using Silvio's bridges for years and years and years, so for me, getting this bridge on here just made it feel more like what I'm used to, because his bridges are very direct and responsive. So what does it sound like? It sounds great. Really warm, open. It's clean and clear and resonant. Maybe it's not perfect for like hard driving bluegrass, because it doesn't necessarily cut quite as much, but it does it well enough. And if you're looking for something warm, that sounds modern and beautiful, this might be the banjo for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message or leave a comment. It's a great banjo. Congrats to Gold Tone for putting together something so great. And thank you, Bela, for putting your name on it. And for being such a good dude. And for having such a great banjo. And for all the music, obviously. All right.